Hello everyone, Minus here, and we're continuing our quest to get information out there about the changes to the classes within Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, which were unveiled via their newest website update on August 30th, 2020. In this video, we're going to look at the best class of all time. Okay, well maybe I'm a little biased, but it's the Rogue.
Pantheon Plus.
So to begin with, when we look at the top of the Rogue page, the Rogue is now listed as damage, clarifying the role more purposefully instead of listing as DPS/utility, which we're starting to see across the entire site as a commonality. Armor, however, no longer lists light mail. This is something I'm very excited about because I really disliked the Rogue wearing mail. Now they're listed as their top armor being heavy leather. This is great. Weapons were previously listed as daggers, throwing knives, and, quote, most one-handed weapons. This list is now cleaned up to be daggers, short spear, long spear, sword, edged, axe, club, warhammer, mace, fist weapon, short bow, and crossbow. Now from the first sight of it, it looks like throwing knives may have been removed, as rogues can now use short bows and crossbows as per the new information. As we've learned about the new rogue resource previously on an older dev stream, it now lists rogues as using endurance and that new resource, opportunity. The race selections for rogues remains the same. So let's get into the new abilities that are shown here by rogues, or the slight changes that perhaps we see now. First, we have a new ability called Like a Ghost. Now this is a passive ability which permanently reduces the range at which hostile enemies will attack you as a rogue. This will further allow rogues to be great scouts, a really nice addition. The next ability is a changed ability, Shadow Walk. Become a living shadow, making it difficult for most creatures to detect you. It will generate opportunity while Shadow Walk is active. Now the change here is that it doesn't list that you are only invisible to non-magical living creatures. It appears a lot has changed with stealth's overall thought process while in development, and a lot of the different pieces needed, for example sneak, hide, etc., are now all a thing of a past. Next is Trapworks, which has been renamed Disarm Mechanical and Enigmatic Traps, and has specified now traps of certain types, more so than its previous incarnation. Pilfer's had a slight change to the description, stating that you can only use it while your Shadow Walk is active, and it cannot be used in combat. It used to say that it required sneak, but as stated earlier, I believe that sneak and hide mechanics were being dropped to have a singular stealth method. Smoke and Mirrors is now named Smoke Trick, a single target mez. There's a new ability called Shadow Step, which states you can move through the shadows to the target enemy location while increasing your movement speed for a short period of time. If an enemy is targeted, it will put them in a surprised state. This is interesting because this will be the first time we've seen a rogue have an ability to add a state to an enemy, and also this is an excellent movement ability that can help you get away from combat or into combat depending on how you want to use it, and with extra run speed as a buffer. This is a very important new ability for a rogue, and I think all rogues should be really excited about this one. There's another new ability called Reddened Elixir. Now this is an interesting ability specifically for a rogue. You can essentially fill a vial with your own HP as a sacrifice, and then use it later to recover that same percentage. A rogue self-heal? Oh yeah. And then lastly, Poisoncraft has now been renamed Toxincraft. Now let's get into the removed abilities that were on the original website that we don't see much of anymore. Now I've talked about it a little bit, but we see Hide and Sneak. Now these old abilities here were EQ throwbacks, and it was sort of how you had to stealth as a rogue back then. Truth be told, I hated it, and it looks like to me like the rogue now is more of a supernatural stealthing type of a character. And from the outside, it appears that stealth is going to work more like WoW or DDO. But before you get your pitchforks out, I have to say that this is a very good thing, as both of those games had incredible stealth. This is a big change here, and keep in mind, I'm only guessing, but a very important and needed change. Now, sleeping powder is not listed. This was an ability that did an AoE mez, but also mez the rogue. I could see this effect just being added to the newly renamed ability Smoke Trick through the Mastery system. Shadow Dwell is also no more. This was an upgrade to Shadow Walk. Much like the previous mentioned ability, I believe that you could easily add this as a mastery of Shadow Walk itself. Unstable Mixture is not mentioned. This was an ability that would allow you to throw a vial at an enemy and cause random effects to them. A lot of attacks are missing, your basic melee style stuff, and I'm sure that we're probably going to see some of these come back as we learn more about the rogue. But these abilities were Blackjack Kick, which gave you leverage and attack speed. We haven't heard much about this leverage thing, and I could see that being taken away. Waylay was an attack which attacked with both weapons at once for big damage. Shadowfall was an ability where you could attack from above an enemy and was only usable out of combat in Shadow Walk state. Toxic Wound, which was a toxic based dot, which increased overall damage on the target that they would receive from poison. And finally, Veiled Strike was an attack which reduced the hate an enemy had for you. Again, keep in mind the list that we see on the website says very blatantly that not all abilities have been shown, and we can assume that we'll probably get some of these attacks back in some form because you wouldn't want a rogue without a bunch of attack abilities. Now overall, I think that there's some pretty important changes to my favorite class, the rogue. We saw changes in weapon types, armor types, a redefined stealth system, an incredible sounding movement ability, a passive to help the rogue be an awesome scout, endurance, and now opportunity being added to that, and finally the ability to put an enemy into a state. Of course, like I said, we're far from complete in what we know about the rogue, but I couldn't be more excited to pick my daggers up and stab some folks, particularly elves. Now check back with us over the next week or so as we continue to cover even more class changes, and overall Pantheon Rise of the Fallen changes, and our dig through the website. Until next time.